Lake Charter Township. And we'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Bennett.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now I'd like a motion for approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll support.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion, the agenda is approved as presented. I don't see anybody out there for public comment. You're perfectly welcome to make public comment if you wish. Is there any public comment for the group out there? In that case, we'll move on. We will go to reviewing the township board agenda for the Thursday night regular meeting. And so, going on with that, we will go to new business. The board will consider the recommendation from Chief Stan to hire a new police officer, Robert Nelson. Did we get a date, a hire date on that?
Madam Chair, I don't recall if that's in the packet or not, but we can confirm that.
Mickey, he wanted to do
We-
the ceremony Thursday
Yeah, we
night.
want to do the ceremony, but I thought he had an earlier hire date.
He's
Yeah.
changed the ceremony because one of the women can't be there.
No, that's two different issues.
Oh,
okay,
This is the hiring.
Okay,
Yeah, I think, because he was sworn in earlier,
yeah.
and I think that will go as his hire date.
I think that the sworn-in date will be his hire date, but I'll tell you what, I'll confirm it and I'll put it in the agenda.
Because I would like that on the record.
And I would like to have, I think as an official agenda item, what's the word for this, the swearing in, if you will. I know he's already has an official one, kind of like just a board recognition as to,
Okay,
we've hired you,
yeah.
and you're close to the paper.
In the packet, there is a memo that says that on Monday, January 26th, that Robert Nelson was hired.
Okay,
Okay,
that's good.
Because I swore him in, well, I swore him in here.
Yeah.
But he will be at the meeting, right? So-
Yeah.
Yes, we will be going to the
And him and his
ceremony
family.
for his family.
Great, yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Okay, going on, the board will consider the request from Chief Stan to send Sergeant Marcus Ferguson to the FBI National Academy from April 1st to 2015 through June 12th, 2015 for executive, managerial, and leadership training. The classes will be held at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. We've talked about that at the police committee report, and we have 4 people that have gone through the academy so far, and it's been very beneficial to us. And so it's an investment, is the way we look at it. Yes.
Was it, we had 4, or this will be 4?
This will be for.
Yeah, this will be for.
So what kinds of things do they, I'm sure it's probably beneficial.
Well, you have, you're in a dorm, and it's kind of a paramilitary deal. You have top people from all over the country, especially like the military academies and so forth, teaching many of the classes. And they have some good, interesting sightseeing, learning history, and but particularly executive leadership skills.
Okay. So is it something we do, are these people track and come?
And that's what they're working on. They have indicated that they wish to go ahead, yeah.
I think Stan was already a chief when he went.
Yeah, and something else I want to add to this.
Stan was a chief when he went, and so that, he was the first.
Yeah,
So the 4 that Mickey's talking about has been spread out since 2002.
yeah.
So it's not like something we do every year.
Right.
They're probably, going forward in the future, it may be something that only Michigan State Police folks are allowed to even participate. So it's quite beneficial to Grand Blanc Township, and the law enforcement strategies and learnings that they do in the tactics are at the utmost, the highest level the FBI Academy is. It doesn't get any, bigger than that.
Because the people that go there, well, they won't be taking, this is the last time that they'll be taking any sergeants.
Yes.
They will only be lieutenants and above.
That's what it was. It's actually the PL, it's the the LPO that's going to be actually offered only to the Michigan MSP.
Plus, for those who are, this is also, even if a department wants to send an employee, this is a kind of invitation.
Yeah.
So to be invited is an honor. If we wanted to say, no, let's do it next year, well, we have to have that opportunity next year.
Correct.
That's good to know.
Yes, Earl.
Yeah, the question I have, Madam Chair, do we have a dollar amount? Because I couldn't find a dollar amount. We should have that in the minutes, because otherwise, when we pay the bills, we won't be able to have anything balanced to.
The academy itself is free.
Right.
It's the,
I have some insight. The chief sent along a fairly detailed list of expenses, and Chris and I debated whether or not we would include them on the agenda, and I think I maybe wrongly persuaded her to not have the price on the agenda, but we can amend the agenda to include the anticipated costs. They are relatively minimal, so, and so we will have that detail for you, and we can put that in the minutes so we understand exactly how much it costs.
Okay, because I didn't see it in my pack. Did I miss it?
It was in his memo that was in the board packet.
Well, the one memo I had didn't list any dollars. It talked about this academy, Michigan State Academy, but it did not have any dollars. I must have missed it.
Police committee meeting this evening, it would be about 1,500 on the low end and 2,500 on the high end. And that's
For the whole
travel.
3 months.
And then basically, it's travel, some,
And
a
what,
little bit of gear, not much. clothing requirement.
since you're gone so long, part of it is coming home once
Yes.
during, to see your family during the time.
Yes.
And if you go out off campus for a meal or anything.
Seems pretty minimal.
Yeah.
what I would, and correct me if I'm wrong, and Mr. Lay, I'll let you interject and give me your opinion on it. We're looking at the high end of still being underneath the threshold of Chief Stamp's authority as a department head to budget. So does the board even need to
That is correct.
discuss that dollar amount, or just let Chief Stamp do his job and stay within his boundaries?
Well, I'm just trying to follow the rules here. If he's bringing it to us to ask him, we need to know the dollar values, so that when we do the checks, otherwise it wouldn't become a committee, so it's kind of a conflict here.
Well, I think there's two reasons that it's on the agenda. First of all, if this was I don't know if this academy requires any board action necessarily to authorize, but the biggest thing in my mind for it to appear on the agenda is because you're basically going to be allocating one of your officers for a long period of time
Right.
for training and maintenance, so you won't have their services
Right,
while
he's
they're
still
here.
paid at his full salary, right?
But, yeah, and so what we, I think, should do, and I think that's why it's on the agenda, frankly, but I think that we could put sort of a range, just of anticipated cost range, just to let the public know that this is not something, it's not like sending somebody away to special training that
Right.
costs tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And so, again, Chris was right, and we'll add a range of anticipated costs and have that for you on the agenda. Not in a whole lot of detail, we're not going to talk about food and travel and stuff like that. We'll have a range of stuff that you can.
Thank you, I hope the press caught that. This was right.
And for the most part, the training facility is almost like a military type base. They have dorms, they have food there, they serve 3 meals a day. I mean, technically, although you'd live another boring 3 months, you wouldn't have to leave the base for that 3 months and, to get
It's
training.
very awesome. I went when one of my brothers graduated. It was really, really
Neat
cool.
event, huh?
Really cool.
It's a good opportunity for us.
Absolutely. Another part of it's a lot of legal work, okay, you learn a lot of law, and that kind of thing. And dealing with it.
No, I was just curious. I wasn't saying it wasn't of value. I found out now it's even more valuable than I thought.
It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
valuable. And Earl, I think that I had the money amount in an email from Sherry. So I was putting it in here, and then I took it out after talking to David. But That's why it isn't in the packet. 'cause
Yeah, that's
I'm looking
fine, I
in the
just want to make
packet
sure
and
that,
not seeing it.
that's fine. I was just curious because I was looking for it and because we need to have dollar amounts if we're going to start doing board approval, so.
Yeah.
Okay. The board, moving on to C, the board will consider reviewing the terms for 3 more years on the zoning board of appeals for Deborah Honay and Mark Calzoa. They are they are incumbents on the board and they wish to continue on the board. Their terms would expire in December of 2017.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Just a comment, both of these individuals are fine contributions to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I would like to see the board extend their wishes and desires to stay on the board.
Thank you. I totally agree. The board will consider the second reading of an ordinance to adopt the latest amendments to the National Building Code. Any discussion?
Not much to discuss.
It's housekeeping, literally housekeeping.
Yeah, those are just updates to the current code,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Mhm.
I would like to mention, Madam Chair, is one of the things I learned at the MTA conference was that there are townships that don't adopt these changes immediately,
Yeah.
and so they get behind on
Mhm.
whether it's the electrical code or plumbing or what have you. So,
And that can cause a lot of trouble, but,
Right.
yeah.
Stay current.
The board will consider a resolution amending the 2015 general fund budget and capital projects fund budget. And you want to go over those with us, Kathy?
Okay, this resolution does amend the 2015 general fund and the capital project funds budget. See, the first amendment is to take funds from the, or to transfer funds from the township superintendent cost center and over to the finance. And what we're doing here is we're just moving the payroll benefits coordinator position. I understand about a year ago it was moved to the township superintendent position and we're putting it back under finance. So we're just taking those funds that were allocated in one cost center and moving them to another cost center.
The 15 budget, correct?
The 15,
Yes,
yes. And that's in the amount of $41,119. And then also from the township superintendent budget, we're transferring $11,310 to the legislative board cost center, and this is to cover the part-time position, which was approved to assist the supervisor in the absence of a superintendent. And then we are adding $40,000 to the general fund appropriations cost center, and we'll be transferring that to the capital projects budget, and that's to cover the cost of the police fitness equipment. And this is one of the items you approved it back in December. And the funds were unspent. It was to be, the cost was to be taken out of the unspent funds from the police department budget. And the expense did not occur in December, it's occurring in January.
yes.
So we had to amend the 15 budget to incorporate that cost.
And Kathy, there may even be invoice in February as well, because they still don't have, we just did it tonight, and not all the equipment was delivered, so.
Right. Yeah, there was only 15,000 that they delivered so far of the.
But this will still take care of pushing that into the.
Right, we'll be able to
Yeah.
Very
take care of
good.
that cost in the 2015 budget.
Very good.
Thank you.
And then we're also transferring funds from the finance department, a total of $20,926 to both the assessing and the GIS IT budget. That is to cover the additional costs associated with the reclassification of several positions within the Chapter V budget, Chapter V contract. It was approved, and these reclassifications were incorporated into the contract, so we're taking care of the cost of those. And then the last one is in the capital project fund, and that is just the transfer coming in from the general fund of the $40,000 for the expense of the police fitness equipment. And then one last thing, though, I would like to point out that this resolution is also taking care of, the last paragraph It's to take care of instances where there is, for instance, last month, there wasn't a second board meeting in January. And what this is going to allow is the township clerk and the treasurer will be able to approve costs. The state requires that any expenditures be approved prior to payment. And in the case where there's a length between two board meetings and we're unable to take care of those, we want to make sure we're in compliance with the state regulations. So this will allow for any early release of checks prior to approval. But what we will do is we will still provide you with a listing at your next board meeting for full board approval as well.
Okay. Any questions?
And that's just an emergency procedure, just in case, right? Because we'll
Yeah,
try
it's
to have
just
the
to cover-
meetings. I mean, if we have to
Exactly.
have a meeting on the fourth Tuesday, we will have that, so we don't have to use that exception, right?
Exactly, but we don't want to run into any situations where we pay late fees or interest or actually even payroll. Payroll is paid every 2 weeks.
Right.
And, that should be approved prior to, but in the instance where it can't be.
Yeah, thank you for putting that in there so that we're protected.
Mark?
Through you, Madam Chair, Mr. Lang, do we need this delineated separate as a policy change? Or when we say the motion for the capital general fund budget amendments, this will take care of it?
You can have it in the body of that
In the
resolution.
body of the resolution?
Yep, you're fine.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, Kathy? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Very clear.
Kathy, it's really nice having you here.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, the board will consider a resolution removing land bank property from the township tax roll. Dave, you want to
Yeah.
explain that, please?
Yeah, Madam Chair and the board, you may remember when we were presented with a list of properties that were going to automatically revert to us from the treasurer's office. We rejected, I think, 5 out of 6 of those properties. And so that means that 5 of those 6 will be transferred to the land bank instead. And when they go into the land bank, they need to be removed from our tax roll because we don't collect tax on property that's in the land bank. It all goes into that formula that creates funds for the land bank. And so this is sort of a clerical recognition that those properties are off our tax roll until they could be rehabilitated and put back into use. And this is something we do every year when we reject properties.
Okay, any questions on that? Then we'll continue on. The board will consider renewal of software maintenance agreement with ESRI, Environmental Service Research Institute, for $16,150. This covers annual maintenance and updates for the software used by the use of the GIS, DPW, Planning and Zoning, and Building departments to perform their daily activities and to create web-based applications for departments without licenses for basic viewing of the GIS data. The maintenance contract must be kept current to receive annual updates and support for these products. The cost will be charged to each department based on their usage. Any questions? Gee, Rob, you can go home early.
What's that?
I said you can go home early, no question. All right, going on, the board will consider renewing the maintenance agreement with, I don't know, Anusys of Innovize of Arcadia, California, for their Platinum Info Water and Info Sewer software for $750. This software is used with the ARC CHS or GIS software to perform water and sewer modeling and is paid from the DPW water and sewer funds. Any questions on that?
We could ask for demonstrations and all
Yeah,
that
right.
Good sleeping material.
Okay, any questions on that? None at all? All right, the board will consider the purchase of a 2015 Chevrolet pickup truck not to exceed $28,000 from Berger Chevrolet.
Want to add on that one?
Yeah.
This is going to replace a truck that's currently used by the DPW, that the DPW and the Fire Commission have discussed. The Fire Commission is going to be purchasing the truck at a fair market value from the township to replace the vehicle that the fire department lost in that traffic accident.
Okay.
Remember.
Any questions on that?
Madam Chair, just for the public, if somebody could just kind of outline how we purchase these in terms of, there is a bid process, this is a.
Right.
Well, just let Jeff handle that.
Yeah.
Okay. Madam Chair, before we do that, can I ask Larry one question? There was some discussion about sort of a temporary solution for a vehicle for the fire department with one of our older vehicles. Does this, if the board moves forward with this purchase, does that eliminate the need for that?
Yes, it does.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So basically with these pickup truck purchases that we made in the past, we're using the same process that we always had, which is utilizing the Oakland County Cooperative Purchasing Program. It's just like Mitten, which I think you might be familiar with. Basically, Oakland County does all the legwork for us. They bid it all out. They have their dealership that they use for all these types of purchases. And I have checked around, it is the best price that I could find. So I'm comfortable with this price. I would like to know that I'm asking for an amount not to exceed $28,000. The original quote came in at $27,000, but as I realize that I'm forgetting things, that the head mechanic is telling me that I'm forgetting, recently it's gone up to $27,165. So I anticipate that to be it, but I just wanted to have that buffer in there just in case I forgot something else. So it will not exceed the $28,000, but like I said, right now, the quote is $27,165.
Any questions for Joe?
I appreciate just outlining the bid process, so
Right. Thank you.
people around.
Municipalities all across the state of Michigan go through the Oakland County.
Absolutely,
All
they do.
trying.
Right. And I do appreciate all the background work that was in our pack, getting all the stuff that's in the vehicle, so I
Right.
appreciate that also.
That was very detailed.
Okay. The board will consider the purchase of the FlexNet MXUs for a price of $100,000 from Aetna Supply, which is an annual purpose till we get all the MXU units taken care of.
I have a question, and I
Mhm.
probably ask this each year, but where are we in terms of percentage of covering everybody on these units? Are we like halfway or three quarters or?
All of that information, which I did not seem to bring. However, I believe it was included in the memo that I provided.
Right.
I think out of, and I'm gonna be really vague here, out of 7,500 accounts that we have here in the township, there's maybe 5,000 that have been completed, and roughly 2,500 that need to be completed. I think I'm in the ballpark there, but if somebody else sees the information, you may correct me.
I'm looking at the memo right
I know I have it.
All right. I remember seeing it myself.
now. And we're purchasing 800 of the MXUs for that 100,000.
It's 7,459 accounts, 2196 still need to be switched.
I just found it.
All right, so
We're plugging along on that, definitely. We do more sometimes as staffing permits, but we're kind of rearranging things right now so that this year we can really attack it and get our allotment done for this year.
What are those numbers again? That we purchased versus what we have left to do?
Right now, we have 7,459 total accounts in the township.
Okay.
We have 2,196 that still need to be switched. And those were numbers 2 weeks ago. They're changed now, because I think we've done 50 to 100 in the past 2 weeks, so.
So the 800 units will come off the 2196.
Correct, yes.
Very good.
And we still have about 300 in reserve in our shop. However, we've been experiencing a higher fail rate of the old ones than normal. Generally, it's like between 10 and 20. The past 2 months, it was 200. each month.
Does
So we
the-
kind of scrambled to replace those.
Does the weather have anything to do with it?
We believe it was the cold weather that affected it. We read again at the beginning of this month, and it is dropped down close to back to normal. So we believe it's the weather that impacted that. The cold weather snaps really takes a toll on the older batteries, so.
So we're switching out some older versions as well as gaining on covering the
Correct.
township.
Correct. Most of the repairs we do are on the older ones. And we reserve those, we have those throughout the year.
Any idea, and I don't expect the exact number, any idea of the total we have covered so far? What percentage are the new ones versus the old ones that could need replacing? Or
It's very few.
very few of the old ones
Yeah.
left?
And if those new ones do need replacing, they are covered under a warranty.
Right.
So.
We don't have a lot, the majority of them are the new
The,
ones.
yeah, the majority of the ones that we're replacing are older ones. The
Right.
newer ones are far and few between, but we do turn those back into Aetna, and they give us new ones for them.
But the total, we have the 7,400, well, we have approximately, 5,000 out there or something.
Right, and all 5,000 are new, right, Jack?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
yeah. All the ones that have been replaced are brand new.
Right.
Okay.
So there's 5,000 new ones out there, and only about 2,500 left that will become new ones, but it'll take a year or two because they only put out so many per year.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
The board will consider the Road Engineering District 7 sewer design additional $4,675 for wetland flagging and soil bearing borings. Which one of you are going to do it, or both?
Go for it.
Yeah. It's a clarification item. In my November board request for the project, I asked for a proposal for an amount not to exceed $50,000 for a row of the design, plus an estimated $8,500 for wetland delineation in the soil. There was some confusion on whether the total was 50 plus the 8,000 or 50 included the 8,000. It's 50 plus the 8,000. We just wanted to clarify that. And then the prices came in much lower than the 8,000 that we had originally thought that it might be. So it was more of a clarification item than anything else.
Right, and I thank you for that, because when we did pay that one bill on that, we did notice that on the invoice, that those other two items weren't part of our budget, so I'm glad you put that back through. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other questions for Dan? Very good. The board will consider the SCADA system brought back to the board after tabling on January 8th, 2015. This involves $250,000 from UIS Corporation.
So basically, I'm bringing this back to you after the last board meeting. There were concerns and some clarifications that needed to be addressed. So I took back all the information that you requested, went through it with Dave Hobson and Dan Potter, and we came back to you with the same proposal. And hopefully this time I included enough information for you guys to make somewhat of a good decision tonight. There were some issues, I can briefly go through this, a number of quotes that I believe Jude brought up. We did have 3 quotes on this project. I wasn't aware of the third one at the time. We actually had 4. One was an informal quote from Aetna Supply, and we kind of decided not to go that route because they weren't real prominent in the business of SCADA. But we did have Motor City Electric, UIS Corporation, and Kennedy Industries. And I had time to review all those quotes, and I've supplied them all here for you tonight also. Motorola equipment, there were some questions on the longevity of that and the quality of the product. I've also confirmed that Motorola is still the top brand of radios used in SCADA systems today. I think if you even talk with the police industries, they'll also confirm with you that Motorola equipment has improved a great deal. They did have a little bit of a slump, but they're back up on top again. And that's why we're comfortable going with Motorola radios, and we want to stick with the radio system. Which brings us to the next, radio versus cellular. The cellular type of system is very entry level. It's not sophisticated. It is far cheaper, However, it's not for Grand Blanc Township. It's for much smaller communities that don't necessarily need quite the system that we have. They're not built for large, complex systems. We have radio now, we have all the FCC licenses and everything that we need, and we would like to stick with radio because it's what we know and what we trust and rely on. And radio is still the most implemented SCADA system in the industry. Let's see, what else was there? Terms and conditions. I know Jude also had questions about the terms and conditions that UIS had. There were some things on there that I was not comfortable with after I read through them myself, and I did go through and negotiate those with UIS. The big part was that it said in there they would not cover the equipment from the time it left, like Motorola, until it got, they wouldn't cover it after that, after it was shipped. UIS is going to cover the equipment until it is delivered to Grand Blanc Township and installed. And they've also, and installed. Well, yeah, once it's, they're going to deliver it here when they install it. So they're going to load it in their vans or whatever and bring it up here. It's not going to come on a UPS truck when you load it off the pallets. And they've also provided us with the guarantee of their service and their installation also. And I think I included that too, their traditional certificate that they'll give us. All the equipment is also covered under manufacturer's warranty, and I wish I would have brought that information with me, but I did not tonight. But I can supply that to you if you'd like.
Is there any other questions that you have, Christian?
Comment. I had doubts. I wasn't 100% sold on this proposal, but this finished it. This made up my mind, and I'm in favor of it. So you did a great job of putting this all
Thank
together
you.
for us. Thank you.
And I hope that all the information, I tried to give you everything I had.
You answered every question.
Yeah.
It even covered some stuff that I didn't even know I didn't even know. It was like, wow, really?
I'm glad.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
Clark?
Madam Chair, a couple things. Jeff, you put in here about the difference between the radio and the cellular. And now we heard the proposal for Consumers Power, going to start in the fall of this year, Genesee County. And they're using for the electrical side, cellular equipment. So, I mean, do they know something that we don't know?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how their technology differs from the SCADA technology. The power industry has always been kind of on its own and different from the water and sewer industries.
Okay.
How they use things is always a little bit different than how we use things. I'm not sure that, I think we're probably comparing apples to oranges there, but I'm not positive.
Now, the second part of this is the MXUs that we approved in the item before this, this is all part of that whole communication
This is separate, and actually we looked at, the fourth quote I got from Aetna Supply was incorporating the SCADA system in with our FlexNet meter reading system. However, the census meters in Aetna Supply just have not been in the water industry long enough for us to comfortably move in that direction.
So to kind of level set me here, then we're operating two different systems
Correct.
out there for this.
They are completely different
metering
systems.
devices, okay.
Yeah, they're two different kinds of radios, frequencies, everything.
Well, the MXUs, when they're on the actual residence's house, right?
Mhm.
It's sending a signal to our tower, right?
Correct.
But these other units, the SCADA system is you're monitoring the systems underground, right? To see
The
if there's-
infrastructures, water towers, tanks,
So it's a
pumps.
different, one is monitoring the
Thursdays.
system, I guess, and the other one is checking the input, right? Is that correct?
They're two completely different systems, okay? So the FlexNet system is ran by our clerical staff essentially. That has everything to do with meter readings,
Yeah.
nothing to do with SCADA system.
Okay.
And vice versa, the SCADA system is only ran by our assistant superintendent, and it has nothing to do with the meter reading.
We would have two systems regardless.
Correct.
Okay, all right, that's what I was
Yes,
trying
I'm
to.
sorry.
No, it was the
Trying
way
to
I was
spit it out,
asking.
but, yeah.
No, it's making
Yeah.
more sense to me now, but
Yeah.
and thank you, Mr. Hudak, because I wasn't thinking along the lines of the metering versus the actual You're doing analysis with the SCADA system?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. We're actually monitoring the infrastructure.
Yeah. Inflows and
Right.
water losses and all those
Absolutely.
kinds of things,
Yep.
great, yes. Okay, thanks.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm not an expert in any of this. When it comes down to it, I mean, I just want to make sure we look at all our options, and I trust, you guys are our experts on this, and if you feel as though this is a system that's going to work best for us, then I would, be in favor of it.
After reviewing the preliminary information that Dan and Dave collected, and I wasn't part of the process because I wasn't here, and then after hearing your concerns and going back and looking at those two, this is definitely a proposal I'm comfortable with. It's staying with the same type of system that we already have, that we know how to operate, and we can repair ourselves for the most part. Switching away from that can mean, well, I don't want to use chaos as a term, but it will take hours to learn. Weeks, months, years for us to learn that new system. And we don't know if we necessarily trust it.
I have a question.
Yes.
The MXUs that are on the houses, the meters, is that cellular,
Those are radio
or
also.
microwave?
They're radio.
Yes.
Yeah, the only other question I had, and I might have already asked it prior, but I know it's 250, what's the lifetime that we figure? I know part of that is the radios, which I know might last at least 20 years, but the other part is
The current system we have has been in place for almost 20 years.
20 years. So
Parts
this
of
two-
it have been replaced, some radios have been
Right.
replaced, but other than that, it's all been here for
Right.
that long.
So this 250 investment should get us for at least another 20 years
At
approximately.
least another 20
Right?
years.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
And now, the board will consider setting a public hearing date for the Rockwood Drive Partridge Creek Special Assessment District. We didn't get good news on that.
No, unfortunately, this news is not good news. You may recall back in September, we received an estimate, well, actually a bid, for the repaving of Rockwood Drive and the Partridge Creek subdivision. At that time, we had discussions about the fact that the one bid they received was significantly above what the estimates were. And the residents were here, and because we had that second public hearing, and asked us, in cooperation with the road commission, to rebuild the project, rebid it, in the hopes that we would be able to get some more competition for bids, or that prices might be lower. But unfortunately, it turned out that the bid that they received, the low bid they received was actually 2.4% higher than the bid that we received before. And so here's the numbers. The first estimate was approximately $110,000. The actual bid was first bid was $151,207. This second bid is $157,796. So.
For how many residents? It wasn't that many, 20?
Something like
Uh,
that.
20.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how many residents
Sorry to interrupt. but-
were included. But what we need to do is share the news, however good or bad it is, with the residents, and set up a public hearing and invite them in, tell them what it is, and get their thoughts on it. So that's.
How does something like that work, David? Do they do petitions all over again and everything?
Well, we're halfway through our phase, and what we did was we declared the district, we agreed that it was necessary to have these improvements done, and then we move into the bid process, and then we decide, we get a lot of input from the residents, and we decide whether to proceed or not. If we decide not to proceed, then we have to figure out if there are any costs that we would consider absorbing, or there is a process where we can actually recoup those costs from the folks who initiated the petition, although I don't think we've done that historically. And also, there aren't very many costs at this point in the game. We've had maybe 4 and going on 6 newspaper advertisements. We've got mailing to all the residents. But if we decide to abandon the project, then it will will essentially be null and void, and if they want to begin the process again at some point in time, then they would simply renew all the steps that they've taken. We can decide to go ahead with or without their permission, but obviously you see the lack of wisdom in that, and that's what presents itself.
And is there a deadline in regard to the engineering costs from the county?
Well, that's a good point. We don't want anybody to move forward and expend any funds until we've given it the green light. And so I think what we'll do, if we have this considered at our March board meeting, that will not cause the road commission to begin any engineering work at that point in time. If we put it off into April or May, then there might be an issue with that. Mr. Guzek, you had a question?
Yeah, I just had a question on the engineering. I know that they did bid it out, and they had to put some specs in there, but that wasn't the true engineering cost, right? That's correct?
That's correct.
So we could, because I know last time the residents were concerned because it was more than 10% over the budget, which they've got the right to cancel it, and we were hoping if we bid it out, so we went from 1 bid to like 6 bids, I think, and it's still now higher, so if they turn it down, all the engineering costs, there isn't any at this point, right?
Right,
It's just the
correct.
mailings cost.
Right, and the only thing I'll correct you on is the residents don't have the right to cancel it. If the costs exceed the estimate by 10%, then we're required to have another public hearing.
Right.
At this point in the game, they're telling you what you want, and then you make the decision.
Yes.
So the bids, they did get other companies to bid on it, it just, that they all came in high, do you know, that type of detail to it?
I can't answer that with certainty, but my impression was there was more than one bidder. But
Yes.
we'll confirm that by the public hearing date.
Yeah, I had that.
Yeah, I think it was 6.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Well, Mr. Laddie, was this the project where the road engineer was here, I can't remember his
Yes.
name? And he indicated that, well, when we bid you guys, we bid it at the wrong time of the year, and that's why the bid was high.
Yeah.
So we're gonna bid it now, and we think we're gonna do better for you.
Yes,
And, you know, they were already ready to tar and feather us as it was, you know, and so I don't think this is gonna be very popular.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it will either, but at least there's one thing for sure, that is that bid was not some crazy high fluke.
Yes.
And so it's bad news, but at least they know that
Correct.
that's the cost of the job.
I agree with that, except that kind of annoyed that we had a guy from the county
Yeah.
who does this every day and kind of replied, well, if we waited till spring or
Yes.
bid in January, we'd get a much lower bid. And that's, I went on his advice because that's what he does every day.
Right.
Yep.
But I think he did say, though, that this is the first time that they bid it out like that this occurred. Because I think I asked him, have you ever done it at this point in time, you know, during the year? And he did say yes. They were just as surprised as we were, and the residents.
And I think they only got one bid then.
That's all they got was
Yeah.
one.
That's only one response.
Yeah,
he
that
was-
was their problem. This
Right.
time there's like 6 of them there.
And they're all high.
And it isn't just this project. He mentioned our friends in Arlington Township have 2 projects that the same thing happened to. So it's very odd how they could be so far off, I
Right.
guess, or that these things could be so much more expensive than anticipated.
So will we be deciding this at the public hearing? Is that how we're gonna
Yes.
make the decision without even giving them a chance to
No, we're gonna invite
sign
them.
petitions and stuff?
No, they're already halfway through the
Okay,
project.
so they
They're-
just come in and say what they wanna say?
Exactly. We're gonna have a redo of what we had in September. They're gonna
Okay.
voice their opinion, and you're gonna decide whether to go forward.
Okay.
Any
Okay,
other questions?
thank you. for
And we're just setting the date, by the way, on Thursday. So probably what we should shoot for is
Yeah.
your regular Thursday meeting in March.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Is there a question over here?
No, sorry. Hold on.
Okay, the board will consider canceling the February 24th Township Board meeting because there is a special election that day and the Township Hall is a designated polling place.
When I made that calendar, we didn't know that we were having the school election,
Got it, good point.
so.
Any questions about that? Okay, going back to the regular meet, tonight's regular meeting?
Can I actually want to board reports real quick? I want to talk a little bit about Parks and Recreation Commission thing, and not so much a report, but I kind of want to give the board something to think about and ponder. Parks and Rec hasn't made a decision yet. In fact, look at all the information, but we are looking at a proposal. The building Parks and Rec is in is adequate, but it's not ideal. It's a leased building, they don't own it. It's right next to the railroad track, so if you're having a conversation and a train goes by, everybody has to just pause for 3 minutes. A few years back, and I don't know the exact date, that there was a millage in the township and the city for Parks and Recreation. And it was supposed to be one of those villages where it was tied together, either passes in both or fails in both, there's no in between. And somehow that language wasn't written properly in the ballot. Well, it passed in the city and failed in the township. So the city's got $600,000 designated for Parks and Rec, that they can't spend anything but Parks and Rec. The city wants to give a portion of property that they own next to City Hall, where the old Parks and Rec building used to be actually, to a developer to develop a condo unit on that. There'll be a 2-unit condo unit, and use that money for Parks and Rec to purchase a condo, if you will, in that.
Inside that one.
Right,
Okay.
in that property. Now, there's lots of benefits to it, I can see, but what I want the board members to think about is, we presently also pay money in the Parks and Rec, and we're paying money for rent on the building right now. And they're gonna need a building no matter what we do. The city has asked, they're gonna give that $600,000 towards this project. And they want the township to contribute what we've normally contribute to Parks and Rec for rent and building lease for the next 10 years to that project as well. And then after 10 years, they go into free and clear. The only thing I want to think about as much as not is, do we want to invest that kind of money, or can we legally dedicate that kind of money to Parks and Rec for a purchase that's going to be in the city? Pros and cons to both. Like I said, in the long term, it'd probably be cheaper for us. But
So is the sole building strictly for Parks and Rec, or is it a condo?
it's
for
going to
other
be a
people?
condo, and actually there is a,
By condo, you mean a residential condo?
no, commercial condo, office suites.
Well, I'm just trying to.
Again, there's a lot of, we don't have a definite design. They're looking at like a 2-story type unit that's got, split in half. This half is, law offices of David L. Laddie on this side and Grand Blanc Parks and Rec on this side, whoever wants to be the other tenant. But, much like a residential condo, we would own it. And if Parks and Rec were to move or dissolve or whatever, we'd have a suite there we could
So are they
sell at least.
planning on the other condo paying for the maintenance, like throughout the years?
Typically with a condo association, you would have if it needs a refurnace, both parties pay for that.
And I think what she's asking, and at least this is how I'm taking it, and I'm gonna ask this. After the 10 years, Parks and Rec will own both pieces of the condo?
No, Parks and Rec will own
just
their
the Parks
condo.
and Rec?
Oh.
And we will pay nothing further towards rent, which right now we're paying rent, monthly for commercial. And commercial properties,
Yeah.
pricey to rent.
That's what the other
Mr. Bennett's got a question.
Is this something the city is putting forth, or something the Parks and Rec is putting forth? Who's putting forth this?
This process started before I resumed my term on the Parks and Rec Board back when Lou was there, so I don't know all the details. The city proposed it to Parks and Rec, as I understand it right now. The city's got this money they have to spend because of the way the millage was written. I mean, it's Parks and Rec money, period.
Right.
They're looking for a way to spend it with the Parks and Rec Department that'll benefit.
I know they discussed, I think when we had our joint meeting, something about having some type of indoor farmer's market or something like this, and trying to attach the Parks and Rec office to that.
That was discussed too, and that's well over $1 million, and that was
turned down.
turned down.
Okay.
Larry, are they planning on using the whole 600,000 to build both pieces of the condo? Or is it gonna be, is the
No,
city?
it's-
So it's all Parks and Rec money going into the condo?
Correct, yep.
But the big condo.
And again, there is no definite proposal, but this is just an idea right now. And I'm not even asking for us to approve it or deny it, I'm just saying I want some input on it. 'Cause
Well,
this decision's gonna be coming, and nothing's gotta be decided in the next month or anything like that. But
well, couldn't they build a smaller condo, and that 600 would go to that, and then it'll be less debt for them, and they'd have their building, and.
Well, you'd still have to buy a piece of property,
Oh, you're right.
so have to build a
I
building.
Mhm.
I mean, theoretically, a condo is not a bad idea, because in the event that it needs a new roof, okay, well, tenants, here's the cost of the roof, here's what we divide up, okay, next 6 months, each tenant pays this much money, and you got your new roof. And you kind of share the cost, things like that.
So who owns the condo, Mr. Ladd? Is it legally Parks and Rec? Because they can't own land, can they? Or can they?
Oh, that's a good question. They don't own land currently, at least parkland.
Right.
They own personal property, like they own
Right.
mowers and maybe vehicles.
Vehicles.
So that'll be something we'll have to reconcile before any purchase is made. But
So what's the deal with the library? I thought that's,
no, we own the libraries, and the senior center and the libraries are jointly owned by the city and the township.
And they're both in the city.
Right, so if this went through, would the Grand Blanc Township own that condo, or would the Parks and Rec own it?
Or a joint.
Well, that's a good question. Probably it would be some joint arrangement, I would think, just like all the other pieces of
Right.
real property that exist.
Right, because the city put in 600,000, so I would think it would have to be joint, but it would be between the two cities and not the Parks and Rec.
Well, yeah, it would be, the way it's currently set up, by the way, the city doesn't own Creasy Park, we own Creasy Park.
Right.
We share ownership of the library, we share ownership of the senior center. And my thought would be that we would, if we were purchasing real property, that the two municipal entities would buy the property together, or own the property together. However we finance it, that can be, we can discuss that however we want. I don't think we want to, at this point in time, stray from what we have had in the past regarding Parks and Rec owning property. But that's something that we could discuss as well. That isn't going to be an impediment to whatever you decide to do.
One thing I'm sorry, I'll let you ask a question. I think is the city has a postage stamp vacant lot, if you will, that they're willing to basically give to this developer to, in addition to $600,000. They really can't develop for much of anything other than a small condo thing. Do you remember the old Parks and Rec offices used to be on Grand Blanc Road there, next to the city hall? It's right there.
now it's Clark, apparently,
I was in there many times.
Okay.
Goes back. Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, it's, to sum this up, it sounds like it would be no different than us owning the Creasy Park, and joint funds are paid by the city and township to operate it. The city, it sounds like, builds the building, owns the building, and as long as they're not asking for any more funds from us than what we contribute to the Parks and Rec budget today for rent, the township has no stake in this thing if they handle it that way, right? And they can continue to own the building, and we're just using it and then paying for operation, correct? Just like they contribute to part of the operation of the Creasy Park.
Correct.
I don't see, I would, if you're asking for my blessing, I think it's worth exploring.
yeah,
I think so too. Like I said, I don't have all the details, so I don't want to say,
Yeah.
I'm going to say, we have to do this right now.
Yeah.
I wanted to get some input.
and we're open-minded about it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yes,
I think anytime you can get away from renting and you can
Yeah.
get a permanent structure, and I know it's an ideal location. The one thing that I would hope that, the commission, I'm sure you guys take this into consideration, is looking at what the long-range plan is for the Parks and Rec, and seeing, how that fits in. I'm just thinking in terms of if you could have, if they're ever looking at having any kind of facility that requires any kind of supervision on an ongoing basis, that if you could combine those two together, rather than eventually have two, somebody stationed somewhere else and then we have the office, it'd be much better to have everything located at one place, is all I'm thinking.
What would be the possibility of like deeding the city a piece of Creasy Park so that they could build the building there and have it right in the biggest park we have?
That's an interesting question, because of the way that the path we took, and Clark and Mickey may remember this and weigh in on it, but we obtained that park through either solely or a combination of a federal grant that had specific limitations on it. And in fact, we ran into, the cell tower is on a piece that was essentially carved out of out of that grant, and it was quite a few hoops that we had to jump through to liberate that piece from that grant. And so I think the idea of us actually transferring parts of Creasy Park are going to be something we don't want to explore from a difficulty standpoint and our obligation that we had made in the past. So
And this is, this is practically directly across the street from Physicians Park and so forth. So there's,
Yeah.
it's centrally located to a lot of what Parks and Rec has to control. And it'll be directly in line, in fact, it'll sharing borders with the city hall. So you get some supervision from both sides there. I'm gonna pursue this more with the Parks and Rec Commission, and I'm also gonna make sure that whatever they ask for from the township, dollar amount wise, matches up proportionally to what we're budgeting now. You know, whether it be 60-40, or something like that's what the split is, so we can make sure we're not paying for more than our share of it. And I'll bring back a more formal proposal then.
So it sounds like that the city would end up owning the building then, right?
No.
That's what I thought.
Joint. Going for Mr. I think the joint would be the way to do it.
it could be, or it could be owned by the city. And I think Clark's analogous situation was Creasy Park, where we own an asset and then they pay to contribute
Oh,
for its upkeep. It could go either way.
I would think that would be the way they would want to stand on this. If they're putting up 600,000.
600,
Yeah.
But
And
it
again-
could go either way.
Right now, we're paying a lot of rent and we own nothing, and the building's
Right.
got some issues, and the landlord's kind of dragging his feet on
Fixing
maintaining and
maintenance,
stuff,
yeah.
so it might be a good time to start looking for this.
Well, we also talked about putting it in other places too, and it was always turned down, okay? But I don't know if legally, because I know the township stayed out of buildings that they rented out and leased. Does the city have the same constraints where they have a building that they're gonna own now, and they've got a tenant in there, which is not Parks and Recs, because there's a tenant in the other part of the condo? Or I'd be more comfortable if it's just strictly Parks and Rec. Legally, it might be all right, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't, if the situation were reversed, or if we're gonna have some ownership interest in this, I'm not a fan of municipalities leasing property.
Right.
Because that isn't one of our functions. We don't have as much immunity if something goes wrong. Now, if they want to undertake it and they feel they've got it handled, then
But it
God
seems
bless them.
like
But
they'd be the same situation, problems that we would have.
right, but that's they.
I mean, because we discussed buying homes and renovating and then selling them. We didn't want to do that, and we didn't want to lease them because we're not in that business. We're in the business that,
That's
Right.
yeah, but
That's a different, yeah.
yeah, but that's something for the city to consider. If they go with Clark's model, for example, if they say we're going to buy this building, you guys are going to contribute a part of its upkeep for some amount of time. If they propose some joint ownership, then we'll have to investigate
because
that.
that was
But-
the original intent, I thought, is we pay the 10 years, whatever the rent was, and then we jointly own it. And I don't know.
Well,
if
again,
we-
like I said,
Well,
there's no
I think we-
concrete proposal.
Right.
Look for ideas, like you take the Parks and Rec.
I'm just giving you ideas.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll take that to him.
So at this time, we've got Mr. Fanning here, okay, and I think we're through with the, so is there somebody that would like to propose we go into executive session?
Oh.
For purpose of contract?
Yeah, we're gonna, yes. But, Madam Chair, before you accept that motion,
I was just wondering if the fire
Oh, yes.
had a report or.
Have you heard anything more today?
I know you didn't talk just because you were bored.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, the only other thing I have to add is David's doing, as of this morning, he was doing very well. Resting comfortably, no major problems. He's expected to have a full recovery. He did have another procedure done this afternoon at 12:30 for a third stint, but I haven't heard anything this afternoon.
Okay.
Still at Genesis.
Yes. Yeah. That's all I have
No, we will take that as long as it's good.
so far.
Okay.
Madam Chair, the good news is that we have a deputy chief that can fill in.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
Interim periods,
Yeah.
emergency periods. Good job, Bob.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that is a very good point.
So, Madam Chair, the executive session will be to discuss labor negotiations.
Motion to go to executive session to discuss labor negotiations.
Support.
Roll call?
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mrs. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Busick?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Kent?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming.